now to part 2. So as I was saying, there is a limit to how much we can mask our true selves. Behavioural leakage is the term used to describe what happens when our true selves leak out via unconscious body language. So, for example, an introvert might start to shut down or not make as much eye contact after a certain period of interacting, despite trying hard to appear extroverted. Now, some people are naturally more skilled at self-monitoring than others. Self-monitoring seems to be another way of actually describing masking, because good self-monitors are skilled at changing their behaviour to fit the social demands of a situation. They're very good at masking. They're a bit like chameleons. But low self-monitors are more likely to display behavioural leakage and do not have so many masks to play around with. And this is the case regardless of whether or not you're autistic or not. I'm talking here about introversion as a personality trait. We often talk about masking in the autism community, but actually non-autistics mask too. Introverts are the ones where this takes the heaviest toll, because I don't think extroverts really mind masking so much because, well, for starters, extroverts don't have to mask so much because their personality is more in keeping with the environment around them. So their natural extroverted selves is kind of what society wants and expects in this extroverted age we live in. But it's introverts who tend to have to mask more to appear more extroverted. Now, if you're an introvert who is very good at self-monitoring, you can come across you can come across as an extrovert very, very well, at least for some of the time. You can fool people. You're very good at fooling people, at tricking people. Obviously, this will cause you some degree of burnout if you have to do this for a long period of time, but you can put on a very convincing act. But low self-monitors are more likely to display behavioural leakage and do not have so many masks to play around with, as I've just mentioned, but I'll say again. Now, I would say that I would say, quite a low self-monitor. I can mask, and I can self-monitor. In other words, over the years, I've learned to put on a reasonably good act, in a sense, to maybe appear more social than I actually am. But I can only do this for a very short period of time. I'm not good at keeping it up for a long period of time. I do eventually start to lapse, I guess, and maybe kind of talk a bit too much, or I stop listening to the other person. So I can only do it for a short period of time. For example, on the self-monitoring list on page 214, I would definitely find it hard to change my opinions or the way I do things in order to please someone. I have never been good at that, and I still can't effectively mask that or camouflage that. If someone asks me to do something that I really am not happy with, I often, because I don't like conflict. What often happens actually is I say I'll do it, and then do you know what happens? I don't do it. The other person gets really pissed off with me, and I can't do anything about it, and at that point, I don't want to have anything more to do with them because I don't like conflict. But, that's where I guess my problems with reciprocity come in, because I'm just not very good at doing what someone else wants if I don't want to do it, because I just don't have that kind of inbuilt, some people might say empathy, to really kind of care. So I guess that's where my self-monitoring breaks down, and where I sometimes can't maintain friendships very well because I don't have that ability to reciprocate, at least on a long-term basis. Now, however, as I said, I can and do imitate people, so certainly some self-monitoring goes on. I can appear more social than I really am in certain situations. That's something that I've developed over for years, but obviously it comes at a great cost, and I can only do it for a certain amount of time. Now, on page 237, Cain points out that introverts are less good at multitasking. However, they are generally better at observing social situations in a detached way than when participating. Now, this applies obviously to non-autistic introverts, because obviously speaking as someone who's autistic, even when I'm observing a social situation, I still am clueless as to what's going on. For example, I know historically when we used to watch films as a family, I would find it really difficult to understand what was going on in the film. This is observing a social situation, but I really found it very difficult. I can't understand when a character is lying or when they're trying to manipulate someone else. I can't understand because I can't read facial expressions. So often my mum would have to interpret it, and I was like, what? I would never have got that. These really subtle things. Now, my mum was an introvert. But a socially skilled introvert because she wasn't autistic. So I think that's a difference. So I don't think it necessarily applies to autistics because we're always going to have struggle with social skills regardless of whether or not we're participating or observing, although we might be relatively better at observing and participating. But still, we're still going to struggle and need quite a lot of someone else doing the interpreting for us. But observing does take away the stress and energy depletion involved in real-time socialising. That might be why many autistics enjoy watching films, and we can learn a great deal about socialising from watching films, and it's less, it's a way in which we can observe a social situation without loss of energy. Also, multitasking is greater in groups than one-to-one interaction, which is why introverts tend to prefer interacting one-on-one. On page 254, she talks about the importance of person-environment fit. This means that people flourish when they're engaged in occupations, roles or settings that are concordant with their personalities, I quote. The list of qualities that on page 269 make up introversion include being reflective, cerebral, bookish, serious, liking solitude, being risk-adverse, and thin-skinned or overly sensitive to criticism, conflict and the environment. I can certainly obviously relate to all of those, but I don't know to what extent that's due to being introverted or to what extent that's due to being autistic. And this now begs the question. Having read this book, it seems to me that speaking as an adult, I'm certainly mostly an introvert. That's not to say that I don't have some extroverted traits, because it's not a binary, but I am mostly introverted. That's the direction that I'm leaning in. But like I said, I do have some extroverted qualities because it's not a binary. I mean, I can be very assertive at times in a way that maybe isn't stereotypical of introverts. You know, sometimes if I need to, I will tell someone where to go quite assertively. If it's something that's really important to me. But that might be to do with the free trait theory. You know, because it's something that is important to me. My traits will change a little bit in that environment, even though I'm still generally introverted. And, you know, sometimes I can enjoy being in the limelight, so I don't have any stage fright, for example, which, again, is not necessarily typical for introverts, but being actually on stage is actually quite easy for me because I'm in control and so on. And that might be more to do with the autism, actually. You know, being on stage, you know, you don't have to do all that reciprocal stuff, so it's a lot easier. Now, and of course, introversion is not actually the same thing as shyness. They're completely different things. The two do often go together. So my mum was both introverted and very shy. I would say that I can be shy in some situations, situational shyness, but you know, I'm certainly not shy in most situations, only in some situations. Introverts simply prefer low arousal environments and one-to-one interactions over groups. They prefer to focus on just one thing at a time and are easily overwhelmed by too many demands or surprises. So as I said already, as an autistic, this is all relatable. So the question really is, can you be an extroverted autistic? Is that actually possible? I would encourage you to reflect on this and post comments in the box below, as this is something I would like to come back to in future. The question is, really, and I don't think there are any easy answers to this, is autism an extreme form of introversion? So is it the case, I guess this comes to the question of whether or not autistic traits are kind of dispersed in a general population as a whole, you know, a sort of dimensional theory, but at a certain point when someone becomes so introverted that it becomes a disability, and on top of their introversion, so not only are they drained by social situations, but they also find social situations really difficult to actually understand. Is that where we get to autism? So is autism really just a very extreme personality style? And indeed, some people have actually argued that. So this is actually a plausible theory. So in what sense is autism introversion plus a very extreme form of introversion plus social skills blindness, a kind of add-on to the introversion? Or is it more of a case that our innate social blindness that we're born with, this congenital social blindness and inability to understand social rules, encourages many of us to become introverted over time. Because in opposition to the idea that autism is just simply extreme introversion, there is this kind of caveat. There's this kind of there's a sort of problem with this theory, because actually some autistics are not introverted. What about those autistics who are the complete, almost polar opposite of introversion, who actually really seek out social situations, who will happily approach people, who will talk non-stop about their interests, who positively enjoy being around people? These autistics will still, of course, really struggle to understand others and to interact with others, but they're clearly not introverted. So what about them? How do they fit? So this comes down to the question is, I do reckon that there are more introverts among the autistic population than there are among the non-autistic population, but is this congenital? Is it the case that there's this really strong degree of correlation, I guess, between introversion and autism, that the two often go together, maybe because of some shared genetic factor? Maybe if you're an extremely introverted parent, you're more likely to have an autistic child, who knows? Or is it more the case that our experiences over time, our environment, pushes many autistic people to become introverts, whereas if they weren't autistic, they might not become introverts? Because, as I was saying earlier, when I was a child, I was definitely not a stereotypical introvert. I could be in some situations, but I certainly displayed many very extroverted sort of traits. Like, I would approach people, I would talk to complete strangers without a fear in the world. I could be very loud, I could be very energetic, I would often crash into kids' play, I would scream in a playground, I would not keep still, I would walk around the classroom, I would chat to people and be very inappropriate, but I didn't have the social skills. And over time, as awareness grew, I became increasingly introverted, and now as an adult, I would say I'm very, very introverted as an adult, which I sometimes describe as an introverted withdrawal. So I do think environment plays a big role. So as I say, do think about these questions, because I'll be very interested to hear your response. Okay, so I'm going to finish these videos now, because I don't have time to talk anything else. I've not forgot your questions. I know you've asked me some very interesting questions, so I do hope to answer those in a future video. And I also would like to talk about my recent trip to Brighton, but that will have to wait now until another week. So I hope you've enjoyed this review of Quiet, and I very much look forward to hearing your answers to those questions I've posed. So thank you for watching.